The observation deck of the celestial survey vessel Starweaver was a silent chapel of awe. Before the wide, transparent alloy window, the xenobiologist stood, her 4 slender fingers resting on the cool surface. Her name was Alara, and her species, the Vespin, had mapped 12 spiral arms without ever lifting a weapon in anger. They were archivists of life, poets of ecosystems. Below, in the mist-wreathed jungles of the planet designated GR441, the apex predator moved. The locals, small arboreal mammals, called it the Krulther. Ilara's team called it the Goliath Render. It was a masterpiece of evolutionary terror. 6 meters of corded muscle, sheathed in iridescent scale like chitin. It moved on 4 powerful limbs, but the front 2 ended in sickled claws that could cleave through composite metal. Its head was a nightmare of hydraulic jaws and sensory pits that could detect a heartbeat from a kilometer away. It was the undisputed monarch of GR441, and for 3 lunar cycles, Alara had watched it, documenting its grace, its power, its place in the delicate web of life. Today, however, the web had a new thread. A thread named Leo.Leo was the human, the sole representative of his species on the Starweaver. Humanity was new to the galactic stage, and their reputation was a confusing tapestry. They were brilliant engineers and created mesmerizing art. But physical data from their homeworld indicated insane atmospheric density, gravity variance, and an ecosystem their own historical records described as relentlessly predatory. The Vespin considered them fragile, their bipedal form awkward, their lack of natural armor laughable. Leo was a geologist, quiet, often smiling in that way that showed too many teeth. A systems failure in Leo's ground shuttle had stranded him in the northern quadrant, a Krulther nesting region. Protocol demanded a shielded rescue skimmer, a process that would take 40 minutes. The Krulther had detected him in 5. Ilara's central heart seized as the predator emerged from the phosphor fungus trees, its low-frequency growl vibrating through the remote sensors. Leo stood on a rocky outcrop, a sampling hammer in his hand, looking at the beast. He did not run. He did not freeze. He slowly set down his sample case. "Dispatch the skimmer now," Ilara whispered into her calm, her voice thin with dread. 28 minutes. "Biologist," came the reply. "It does not have 28 minutes," she said. But the channel was already closed to prioritize rescue ops. She was a spectator, the Krulther charged. It was a blur of devastating speed, a living avalanche. It covered the 100-meter clearing in seconds, leaping at the last moment, its primary jaws wide enough to sever the human at the torso, the smaller inner jaws snapping forward to impale and hold. Leo moved. Ilara's brain struggled to parse it. The human did not dodge away. He dropped his center of gravity and stepped into the leap. The Krulther's aim was thrown off by the unexpected movement. The primary jaws snapped shut on air with a sound like shattered stone. A sickle claw raked down Leo's side, tearing the environment suit and drawing a line of crimson. Leo grunted, a short, sharp sound. Then his left arm shot up, not away from the inner jaws, but past them. His hand, encased in a torn glove, clamped onto the bony crest above the Krulther's sensory pit. His other hand, still holding the geology hammer, swung. It was not a wild blow. It was a precise, terrible strike, the tungsten carbide head impacting the hinge of the Krulther's lower right primary jaw. A crack echoed, and the jaw hung, misaligned. The beast roared, a sound of shock and pain, and wrenched its head. Leo was flung, but he kept his grip on the crest, his body slamming into the Krulther's neck. He swung his legs, wrapping them around the thick muscular column. He was now on the creature's back, a position of impossible vulnerability. The Krulther bucked and spun, trying to dislodge him. It slammed its bulk against a giant tree. Leo took the impact, breath huffing out, but his grip, strengthened by a lifetime in 1.2 standard gravity, held. His free hand, the hammer now lost, became a fist. He began to strike. It was not the blows themselves. It was the location. Each hammering fist fell on the same spot. A junction in the chitinous plating Ilara knew was a neural ganglion cluster from their scans. The human had studied. The Krelther shrieked, a higher, frantic sound. It rolled, trying to crush him. Leo released his leg grip at the last second, pushing off to avoid the full weight, but kept his hand anchored in a fissure in the plating. As the beast rose, disoriented, Leo found his hammer. He moved around the flank, his shadow attached to a mountain of rage. The Krelther spun, its good jaw snapping. Leo weaved inside the arc of the blow and brought the hammer down two-handed on the forelimb joint. The chitin splintered. The limb buckled. The balance of the fight shifted. The majestic predator was now lopsided, dragging a limb. Its movements lost their grace, becoming desperate, panicked. Leo was a constant, methodical pressure. He did not roar. He did not taunt. His face, caught in a sensor close-up, was set in a mask of intense, almost clinical focus. His breath was steady, controlled. He struck the same joint again. The limb gave way with a wet snap. The Krelther crashed to the ground. It tried to rise, to pivot, to use its tail. Leo avoided the lashing appendage and climbed onto its back once more. This time, his target was the base of the skull, where the spinal cord met the cranium. Ilara watched, her scientific detachment shattered. This was not a fight for survival anymore. That had been decided in the first 10 seconds. This was something else. A deconstruction. The geology hammer rose and fell. It was not a frenzied attack. It was deliberate, like a miner breaking ore, like a sculptor removing stone. Each impact was measured, placed, efficient. The Krelther's roars became whimpers, then wet, choking sounds. Its struggles weakened. Finally, Leo stood, breathing heavily, blood dripping from his torn side and his knuckles. The magnificent Goliath render, the apex predator of GR-441, lay still at his feet. It was not merely dead. It was broken in specific, brutal ways. The head was partially separated. The limbs were at unnatural angles. Then, as the whine of the rescue skimmer finally pierced the jungle air, Leo did something that etched itself permanently into Ilara's mind. He knelt, placed a hand on the creature's ruined flank for a moment, his head bowed. Then he began the practical work of securing his sample case to his back with a torn strap. He did not celebrate. He did not look triumphant. He looked like a man who had completed a hard, necessary task. The skimmer landed. The Vespin medics rushed out, their large eyes wide with horror at the scene. They fussed over Leo, applying coagulant gel to his wounds. He accepted their ministrations quietly, his eyes distant. Back on the Starweaver, in the sterile medical bay, Ilara went to see him. He was sitting on the biobed, his torso bandaged, sipping a nutrient drink. "You observed," he said, his voice a rough gravel. Yes, Ilara managed. "The system's failure. We could not get to you in time." "It's all right," he said. "Not your fault." Silence hung between them. Ilara's mind replayed the images in a loop. The charge, the step inside, the grip, the precise, shattering blows. "You killed the Krelther," she finally said, the statement absurd in its inadequacy. Leo looked into his drink. "It was trying to eat me. It was the only option." "Only option?" Her voice trembled. You dismantled it." "I have studied that species for cycles. Its power was legendary. You tore it into chunks like it was nothing." He was quiet for a long time. "It wasn't nothing," he said, his voice low. It was strong. Faster than I calculated. Smarter, too. It adjusted after the first blow. He looked at her, and for the first time, she saw something in his human eyes she could name. It was not pride. It was a profound, weary respect. On my world, we were not always at the top. For a very, very long time, we were in the middle. Things with sharper teeth, stronger claws, tougher hide, they hunted us. The only things we had were this, he tapped his temple, and the ability to keep going after we should have stopped. To turn our hands into tools, and then weapons. To target the weak points. To endure. That thing, it was an apex predator. But an apex predator from a gentle world. Gentle? Alara breathed, thinking of the Krelther's shredding claws. Leo almost smiled. It never had to fight something that looked at it and saw a puzzle. A set of breaking points. A logistics problem. It never had to fight something that decided, truly decided, that it was not going to be food today. He finished his drink. It was magnificent. I am sorry I had to break it. Alara left the medical bay, her entire understanding of the universe fractured. Her people had always believed violence was a failure of intellect, of civilization. They saw the humans' actions as a monstrous, if effective, regression. But as she reviewed the data, she saw something new. The lack of frenzy. The precision of each strike. The conservation of energy. The focus. It was not mindless violence. It was violence applied with the cold, problem-solving precision of a mathematician. It was the application of a brutal evolutionary logic they had never before witnessed. Humanity had not out-evolved the predator. They had outthought it, and then they had used the terrifying engines of their bodies to execute the thought. She returned to the observation deck, but the jungle below no longer looked like a passive diorama. It looked like an equation, one her species had only ever read. Humanity, she understood, wrote the solutions in a different language. A final, chilling thought settled upon her. The Krelther